Ready for the video, Shrey?
Absolutely, let's get it.
Cool. Present practice. What is vibing? This is Vish and
Shrey here.
and today we'll be responding to Sadhguru's video on
The science of being successful.
do you ever find yourself stressed, anxious, or nervous? Well, that used to be me all the time, and then I found meditation. And after doing it, all those things are gone. And now I've got hundreds of people on their meditation journeys. And I will soon be coming out with a meditation product, so stay tuned for that. And today, I'm here with Shrey.
What's up, guys?
Want to introduce yourself?
My name is Shrey, and I'm a pre-med student at Stony Brook University. I am heavily into research, and I absolutely love doing film and cinematography as a hobby. So I'm here with you guys, and I'm here thanks Vish for having me, and here we go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. And this topic, I think, will be very interesting. I mean, we both come from relatively scientific research backgrounds. And in fact, we actually were in the same research class back in high school, Long Island, New York, where I grew up. And so the science of success, I think, will be very interesting.
Yep.
And especially growing up in this Western country where success is a huge thing, science is obviously a huge thing as well. I think it'll be interesting, and let's get right into the video.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Sir, I'm a skeptic. Sir, you about this fact that we should enhance our competence. So, how do you start this process?
IIT is a beginning. So, what are you skeptical about? You don't believe competence will work in this world, is it? Corruption is also a certain kind of competence, anyway.
That was supposed to be a joke.
Huh?
That was supposed to be a joke.
Okay, that's supposed to be a joke. So, now, how do I enhance my competence? See, let's say you want to run on the field. Let's say you want to run a race. You want to run 100 meters. It is not running that you have to work on right now. You have to work on your legs and lungs and muscle and everything, isn't it so? So, if you want to become a great engineer, yes, definitely, an institute like this is crucial on one level. But any number of people might have come here and gone, not all of them became great engineers. Though they might have produced hundreds of great engineers, still not all of them will become, simply because of their own individual attitudes and competence and whatever else, isn't it? So, whatever the institute can do for you, it is doing. One foremost thing that you need to do is to enhance your own physical and mental capabilities. Because if you want to be a good engineer, you need a working brain. Just having a degree of engineering may be a passport to a job, but it is not a passport to success, isn't it? So to have a working brain, which the engineering degree will not freeze. Usually lots of degrees, when people acquire degrees, they freeze their brains. They think they can… now they've finished using it and now they can rest it for the rest of their lives. It is not so. This is only to enhance your capability. This is just an organized effort. A school, a college, an institute is just an organized effort towards that, because each individual cannot craft it for himself. That is why an institution. Otherwise, an institution has no other purpose. It is here to just organize that possibility of you striving to be of a certain competence. But that is a mass application. But as an individual, your most important thing is you as a human being, you are functioning at the fullest level. If that has to happen, there are other dimensions which one needs to explore. Unfortunately, though these sciences and technologies for inner well-being have been the mainstay of this culture for thousands of years, today we are largely losing it for various reasons, because we want to imitate somebody else. We don't want to imitate our grandfather Topiwala anymore. We want to imitate the hat seller from another country. Because of that, we are losing those things. But we should not, we have to bring it back into our lives. This is very much a part of the way the culture itself is structured, that it is all about the human being. See, this is the only culture which talks about, which even an illiterate person in this culture is aware of, that you can actually evolve to another dimension of existence. Even if I go into a village and talk to an illiterate peasant who has not read anything, who doesn't know anything, who's not heard any of this stuff, even to him if I go, he will not ask me, give me a golden horse or something, he'll say, "Enakku mukti venum Swami." He's saying he wants ultimate liberation. Where did this fellow get this? Nowhere else on the planet this is possible. Nowhere else on this planet is it possible that an illiterate person is thinking that he can break his present dimension of existence and go to another place, whatever that place is. So, this was bred into our culture so deep, we should not lose it. It was not just the idea, there are technologies to become free. If you became free from the process of your body and the process of your mind, if you can sit outside of it and work it, you would work it brilliantly, do you understand? You would be able to use this body and use this mind only when you are able to not treat it as myself. These are powerful instruments in your life. These instruments can be employed the way you want it, only when you have an outside access to it. Right now, you are a phenomenal computer, but you don't know where the keyboard is. When you can't think, you scratch this spot, that's not where it is. Do you see people? When they cannot think, they're thinking hard, they scratch here. It doesn't work like that. There are proper steps that one can take. It could be offered here if everybody is willing for that.
What do you think, Shrey?
Well, as usual, I've been on the Sadhguru train for quite a while now because, you introduced me. So, in line with everything that I've watched, I'm always impressed by what he has to say and always try to learn something new from him. So, definitely first impression, lots to unpack there. So, let's get into it.
Awesome, yeah. I appreciate you sharing how you've found Sadhguru kind of through me. Briefly getting into this, I found Sadhguru about 2 years ago, and coming from the scientific background, honestly, before Sadhguru really wasn't open to spirituality and open to this new dimension of life. So before I get into actually the details of my experience, I'm curious, towards the end he was talking about how the poorest, uneducated fellow was able to have this kind of realization, or deeper realization that is about life. What does that mean to you, coming from a scientific background?
Yeah, so that was a really interesting point. The reason being is because, especially here in America, the Western world and the Western culture has emphasized this concept of, okay, if you get a degree, you're considered educated.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a degree or you didn't go to college, while it's not necessarily officiated that way, there is this kind of unspoken degree of, okay, this person is not as educated as someone that has gone to college or has gotten a degree, something like that.
Right.
The concept that he brought up about someone in our definition of the word illiterate, being able to recognize or have this kind of innate intuition about concepts that anyone else could also have, I think is a really special way to show that at the deepest level, education is but one facet of our culture and of any individual. Because at our core, we have understanding. And at the end of the day, we are given the privilege of being able to experience everything around us. And that experience is to the individual. And you don't need to go to school or get a degree to experience the world and try to make some understanding out of it. So that's my first impression on that concept that Sadhguru touched on.
Wow,
Yeah.
very powerful. I really like the way you connected with that idea of really, as I perceive what you just said, right? It's really about this realization. Again, you can talk about this and learn from the videos, and that's fine, but practicing is more important.
Yeah.
Experience, as you just mentioned, is so powerful. And again, coming from the scientific background and research and exams and all that, as I've realized, and Sadhguru talks about this himself, the logical mind is a very powerful tool. And he talks about this specific example. It's almost like, let's just say using, okay, maybe not the most ideal example, but let's just say a tennis racket for hitting the tennis ball. Very great. But now let's just say use a tennis racket for basketball.
Yeah.
Not really gonna be as great of a tool.
Yeah.
It's a great tool, but it can only be used in certain cases, in certain situations. So the problem, as I've seen nowadays, is that society is shaped by the intellectual mind, the logical mind. I view them as very similar, right? But you see, intelligence, as I've realized, is a lot more vast than just the intellect. The intellect is one dimension of it. The logical mind is one dimension of it. But there's a much more deeper, and as well as wideness of depth to intelligence, which we tend to ignore. As you just beautifully explained about what Sadhguru talked about with the village guy who, as we view as illiterate and not so smart, he has a sense of natural intelligence. And another interesting thing connecting off of that is what Sadhguru talks about, is the natural intelligence of the universe, right? So for instance, the sun rising at this perfect spot in the sky, the earth being in this perfect position, quote unquote perfect position in the solar system. All these other examples I'm sure we can find, right? And not even just find, but it's in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
That is a natural intelligence of life. It's as simple as aligning ourselves with that, and that's what yoga actually means. Yoga means union. When you're in that union with life, you will naturally operate with that natural intelligence. It's just very powerful. So based on what I just said, or even maybe something else that Sadhguru talked about in the video, what do you think?
I absolutely want to expand on this concept of a universal intelligence. The reason is because we often, the classical example of when you think about why math is so quote unquote elegant, you'll hear scientists, you'll hear mathematicians say that math is elegant and that nature is mathematical and therefore it is elegant. The reason being is you've seen images probably of seashells that follow a golden spiral, or you'll see this quote unquote golden ratio in nature everywhere. And people use this justification as, look, we as human beings were able to uncover and kind of figure it out, figure nature out. And what I don't appreciate about this distinction is because it makes nature this entity that's foreign to us, when in reality we are within and have become from nature itself. So the question that I pose to those who study nature objectively is, what gave you the privilege to separate yourself from something that you came from? And that interconnectedness is what Sadhguru alludes to when someone says, or when Sadhguru said it, you don't need a fancy degree or a fancy equation to appreciate this universal intelligence or this harmony with nature. You don't need a degree because we were naturally born in the world to experience it and to experience nature how it was meant to be. So that's what I think. I absolutely appreciate this mathematical concept of understanding nature and really getting into it. But there's a very fine line, and it's a slippery line, of trying to understand and appreciate something while being within it, versus making it into a test subject that is now separate from you, which is, in a sense, maybe even in your mind put below you because now you're inspecting it instead of appreciating and experiencing it. So understanding through experience, in my opinion, and I think this is what Sadhguru alludes to with that example from the village. Something from experience and intuition is worth intellectually speaking, or in terms of intelligence,
Yes.
it is worth the same, if not more, than the academic standpoint only.
Yes.
That has its place as a perspective.
Yes.
This has its place as its perspective. Ideally, you want to be open to explore these different perspectives so that you can maximize your understanding and experience of the world. That's my view on that concept.
Well, that was a beautiful view, and thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's very interesting because I've heard this from Sadhguru himself. And to keep it brief, actually, it's this idea of like discovery, right?
Yeah.
Itself. I mean, he even talks about, for instance, when the Europeans or the Europeans discovered the Americas.
Yeah.
What did you discover? What was already discovered by the Native Americans?
Right.
The same principle applies to even this golden ratio concept, for
Yeah.
instance, right? To discover almost implies the idea that it didn't exist before, and you almost kind of are the
Originator.
originator,
Yeah,
right? And
the
if it
creator.
wasn't for you, it wouldn't be there.
Exactly.
But as you beautifully described and connected, right? It really comes down to being one with it, not
Yeah.
separate.
Exactly.
And that separate inspection type of view almost puts that down.
Yeah.
So beautifully said.
Yeah. Dude, I just wanted to add, so this concept you just talked about, you know, this idea of I want to find something,
Mhm.
I want to discover something.
Mhm.
I think that innate, and Sadhguru I know talks about this. What differentiates a child, a 5-year-old child, from someone who's 30, 40 years old is this raw human curiosity
Mhm.
that really differentiates the human being from other animal species on the planet.
Yes.
It's not our intelligence. Sadhguru gives the classic example of if you put something poisonous in front of a dog, they'll instantly know
Mhm.
what not to eat and what to eat.
Right.
So, whereas a human being may be fooled right off the bat. Does that mean the dog is a superior species? Does that mean the dog is more intelligent than the human? So intelligence isn't a scale that we can compare ourselves to. Instead, he emphasizes raw curiosity as what differentiates us.
Yes.
And I think that's so important because curiosity can be applied to academics, to spirituality, to intuition,
Mhm.
to just observation.
Yes.
That's the key thing there. And the difference between a 5-year-old who blindly will just try to explore, just curious about what the world is, exactly, life, versus someone who's 30 and 40 or older who has now been burdened by premonitions, biases, perspectives, influences that basically act to dampen that curiosity. It's still there.
Mhm.
Human curiosity, in my opinion, is one of our most powerful tools.
100%.
And nothing can contain it. So human curiosity has such a raw power to it
Mhm.
that I think no matter what happens to it as we progress, no matter how many dampeners we put on it, I think at its core, it's not going to lose its power. We
Yes.
just have to be willing to let it out.
Yes.
And I think especially just tying all this back to practicality,
Mhm.
when it comes to something like doing research,
Mhm.
this is what I tell any new student that comes to my lab. A lot of students, they're overwhelmed. They're feeling nervous about doing research. And sometimes they can be like, oh, this is not working, this is too hard. This is what I say, because I'm no one special to say that I've never had any challenges or any obstacles in my research.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I think anytime I'm having a hardship or an experiment doesn't work or anything like that, I think my goal with my research is not to say that I did research.
Mhm.
My goal is, in my particular field, which is colon cancer research, the work I'm doing today, if that can make even a single change to a patient or not even a patient, but a life that is suffering, then my research will have been worth it. Then my work will have been worth it. And when I'm sitting there doing experiments for 4, 6, 8 hours straight, and my arm is getting tired, and my brain is like, why am I even doing this? Why can't I just give up? The end of the day is I'm vehemently and furiously curious about how can I use my knowledge and understanding to ultimately help someone down the road. Because if I'm not doing it for them, then why am I doing research? And that's what I tell my students, and I think that's what curiosity can do for not only research, but any field or any discipline that you want to experience. That's the key to drive you to pursue it at its maximum. And that's just my feelings on how Sadhguru's teachings, sometimes they may seem a little abstract, and it might be a little bit, difficult to always find how practical it could be, especially with our lives. It's difficult to kind of drop everything that we're doing and still be able to reflect on what Sadhguru's teachings are, trying to reflect on your own life and how they can be applied. And I think that trying to think and apply these teachings to your life in whatever you're doing, it doesn't have to be academic, it doesn't have to be anything research related or whatever, but taking the time to see how can you use these small nuggets of wisdom to shape your direction and improve your integrity. That's really the way forward, just by taking small steps. So that's why I absolutely love these videos from Sadhguru, and reacting to them is absolutely a pleasure. Thanks, Vish, for introducing me.
Absolutely.
I'm totally hooked, and definitely keep on going.
Thank you so much, Shrey. I mean,
Absolutely.
not much there for me to add, to be fully transparent, but he really just provided another beautiful message, as well as perspective and lessons and lots of jam-packed things he just provided. So I'm grateful that he was here, as well as that you were able to learn from him, as well as obviously Sadhguru himself. I would love to learn from you watching how you in your life practice being successful. So comment that down below. We'd love to hear again how you do that. And with that, where can they find you, Shrey?
So hit me up on my YouTube, just Shrey Thaker. It will be linked down below. So hit me up on that, hit me up on socials, everything will be there. If you want to just come chill, talk about research, watch me play some games, that's where you'll find me.
Awesome. Again, very grateful that you're here.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you taking the time to watch this reaction. And with that, make it a great day, take it joyfully, and stay
Conscious.
Awesome job.
Thanks, Vish.
And that's a wrap.
Awesome.